Express yourself through art and show the world your heart. Express yourself through art and show the world your heart. You're in the know with Esther and Larry. Art on the air today. Stay in the know with Larry and Esther. Art on the air our way. Express yourself through art and show the world your heart. Express yourself through art and show the world your heart.
Welcome. You're listening to Art on the Air on WVLP 103.1 FM and Lakeshore Public Radio 89.1 FM, our weekly program covering arts and arts events throughout Northwest Indiana and beyond. I'm Larry Breckner of New Perspectives Photography, right alongside here with Esther Golden of The Nest in Michigan City.
Aloha, everyone.
We're your hosts for Art on the Air. Our theme music is by Billy Foster with a vocal by Renee Foster. Our underwriters for Art in the Air are Valparaiso University's Brower Museum, regional art patron Mary Levan, and our landlord Walt Breidinger of Paragon Investments. Thank you for your generous support. Art on the Air is supported by an Indiana Arts Commission Arts Project grant through South Shore Arts and the National Endowment for the Arts. Thanks to Greg Kovach, WVOP's station manager, and Tom Maloney, Vice President of Radio Operations at Lakeshore Public Radio. Art on the Air streams live at WVLP.org and is rebroadcast on Monday at 5 p.m., plus is also heard on Lakeshore Public Radio, 89.1 FM every Sunday at 7 p.m., also streaming live at lakeshorepublicradio.org, and is available on Lakeshore Public Radio's website as a podcast. Our spotlight interviews are also heard Wednesdays on Lakeshore Public Radio. Information about Art on the Air is available at our website, brech.com/AOTA. That's Brech, BRECH.com/AOTA. That includes a complete show archive, spotlight interviews, plus our show is available on multiple podcast platforms, including NPR One. Please like us on Facebook, Art on the Air, WVLP, for information about upcoming shows and interviews. If you're interested in being a guest or sending us information about your arts-related event, exhibit, please email us at aota@brech.com. That's aota@brech, BRECH.com, or through our Facebook page. Art on the Air is always looking for financial support. We'd like to thank our current supporters. If you're looking to support Art on the Air, Esther and I especially would invite you to become an underwriter of this program in particular. We have information on our website at brech.com/AOTA. You can find out support information there. So don't just be an Art on the Air listener. Become a supporter or underwriter in whatever amount you're able to do so we continue to bring you great content and this great local programming. And like I say every week, don't give till it hurts. Give till it feels good. And you'll feel so good about supporting Art on the Air. And on Art in the Air Spotlight, we have Wendy Marciniak, who is the president of the Chesterton Art Center. And, of course, during our challenged COVID times, they're still cranking things out and doing things in the new year. So, Wendy, welcome to Art in the Air Spotlight.
Thank you so much for having me today. I'm really excited to be here.
We're excited to have you back. So tell us a little bit about what's going on. I know you have current shows, a little bit what's coming up, classes. So what's going on at Chesterton Art Center right now, and how's it operating?
Well, I'm pleased to say that we are indeed open to the public during our regular hours, which are Monday through Friday, 11 to 4, and on Saturday from 10 to 2. We are being very careful with COVID restrictions, and we sanitize all the time, so you can feel very safe when you come into our environment. And we're really pleased that we have our members show going on right now in all three galleries, the two downstairs ones and upstairs. Our members have been so busy during COVID, just turning out beautiful artwork. And so we really wanted to honor them by having their work displayed in half of November and December, and a little bit in January too, until January 13th. And they've turned out some amazing work, and it's available in all price points, which is really nice for people that really want to give a gift of art during this holiday season. And we also have our artisan gift gallery open too, which has smaller items like jewelry, ceramics, fiber, photography, all kinds of different art forms. And cards, we have lovely cards that are a very nice thing to send to somebody when you can't see them during these times. So,
are there some names that you can mention who are showing right now? Like just some of your member names, a few of them?
Oh, sure. We have, of course, Larry Breckner with his photography, and we actually just sold a big piece of his the other day.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I sent you an email. It's wonderful. And we have painters like Ron Steck and Christine Newton. We have jewelers like Kathy Millett. We have ceramics by Dave Areola and Mindy Meelan Miller that keep flying out the door. And we have work by Rita Berg and just a lot of our members. So, yeah, it's fun.
I noticed on your website that I was just wondering if the virtual children's classes will be ongoing, or are they on pause?
No, absolutely. We have been running virtual children's art education since July. We did that with our 4 summer camps, and then we started our regular school season in September. And it's really fun because the parents and the kids pull up in their car and pick up a bag of art supplies that lasts them the whole month, and then they get to wave to their teacher. And we've had a very steady following with that, and it's really fun to see that the work that the children turn out virtually. And that will be continuing in January when school resumes, and that will end in May. And then we'll have summer art camp again this summer, and we may be to the point where we can have children on site, but that all remains to be seen.
And that's preschool through high school and then homeschoolers, are they?
Correct. Yes. So we run the gamut, and it's really fun to see what siblings create together too while they're at home together. And it's great to hear their voices from the other side of the building while our wonderful teacher, Jen Aitchison, teaches on Zoom. She does it in our building so that we can hear the dialogue back and forth. And occasionally I'll sneak in to see what the kids are doing, and it's really fun.
Oh, it sounds fun. So are your January Expressionism class, is that still happening?
That's for children, yes. And Jen plans out each month to study a different art form or period in the arts. And so the children are really learning.
Now, the question I have, too, is we had to cancel, by way of disclosure, I'm on the board for Chesterton Art Center, but your big events we had, like the art fair and gala, what do you project maybe for upcoming? I know it's kind of iffy, but what do you think we're going to have in 2021?
Well, we are definitely moving ahead with plans for the art fair, and that would be held August 7th and 8th of this year, and the applications are live. So if you go to our website, if you're an artist, you can certainly apply. And hopefully we will have a gala next fall, and we're making plans for that too.
Tell us a little bit about any upcoming exhibits, and I know we may talk to you in another spotlight about that, but what's coming up after the member show?
Well, in February, we are partnering with IUN, and it's going to be Arts in Action Community Lab, and I'm not going to go into it any further because there's much to tell, and I'll be very excited to share about that partnership in another spot. And then hopefully in March, we can host something with Duneland Schools like we always do. In April, I know the Duneland Weavers Guild is planning to have their show, and so there's lots going on, and we'd love to see you. So you can visit us at 115 South 4th Street in Chesterton. You can call us at 926-4711. And again, our hours are Monday through Friday, 11 to 4, and Saturdays from 10 to 2.
Well, thank you for being on Art in the Air Spotlight, Wendy Marciniak of the Chesterton Art Center. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're listening to Art on the Air, WVLP 103.1 FM, and on Lakeshore Public Radio 89.1 FM. And we'd like to welcome to Art in the Air a mosaic artist who likes to think big. Her public art installations are in places like Los Angeles Transit System, Pioneer Modernism Park, Desert National Wildlife, and all around. We'd like to welcome to Art on the Air mosaic artist Robin Brailsford. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure being here.
Aloha.
Well, Robin, we'd like you to tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, your kind of life journey, how you got from where you were to where you are now.
Well, that's a pretty open-ended and large question. I was just actually thinking about it the other day. I grew up in Beverly Farms, Massachusetts, and my mother chose the house because there was a beach across the street with a big pier, and she thought that the beach and the pier would make for an awful lot of fun, and she was absolutely right about that. I just finished reading a book called The Design of Childhood, where they talk about adventure playgrounds. And West Beach and Beverly Farms was certainly an adventure playground. So we were at the beach morning, noon, and night, summer and winter, skiing on it in the wintertime, and swimming in 50-degree water all day long in the summer. I think one of the big things that got me going into public art was actually in Beverly Farms. We have the most spectacular 4th of July celebrations you could imagine. In the morning on 4th of July, before you're even out of bed, there's a car that goes around in the neighborhoods and calls everybody to get up by name. So they go by your house and they call out your name and they ask you to get up. And you go down to the downtown and you go to the see the Horribles parade, which is a very political, very raunchy, very wonderful, truly American, patriotic, freedom of speech kind of an event. They had everybody from people on horses to kids on bicycles to, I'm sure this year they're going to be off the roof with everything that's happened in 2020. And then at the beach, there were 3-legged races and, you'd win a silver dollar. And then at night there would be fireworks that were just absolutely spectacular and free. Everybody in the community would go for the fireworks, and there'd be boats out on the water who would come from miles around to see the Beverly Farms fireworks. So I think that all of those things really very strongly influenced me in the idea of community and free, expression for everybody. Of course, I didn't know it at the time because there was no such thing as public art at the time. I actually really got my start in Mrs. Niebergall's class at Beverly High School, in that I was a shy, not very highly graded student in school, but I made all my own clothes and I was creative, and in a lot of ways my family life was sort of falling apart. So I expressed myself creatively, and I was put into a drawing class in the where the kids do welding. Well, all the boys and everything did welding and carpentry. They put me in a drawing class there, and the teacher told us that there was no such thing worth drawing except for screws and washing machines. So I went to my guidance counselor crying and said, "Get me out of here. Where can you put me?" And he said, "Well, there's only one position left in any art class, and it's in Mrs. Niebergall's jewelry class." And so I got in there and I was like a fish to water. And that was sort of what, set me on my path. I ended up going to Syracuse University, majoring in sculpture, and I was majoring in jewelry. And I got frustrated eventually with the scale of jewelry and went to sculpture and had a spectacular professor, Roger Mack, who got me casting bronze and working really big. I was doing glass at the time. I was very interested in glass, way before the current glass revival has happened. And that was sort of that's sort of the communal aspect of it. I had a very interesting family. My father was a sea captain. My mother was an artist and a writer, has her own website. And she grew up in a homestead in northern Minnesota. So you all in the Midwest, I understand that pretty well. She grew up in Popple, Minnesota, went to high school in Sebeka. Her brother, who's 99, Sam Wozniak, is still alive and still making art. So, that's sort of what set me on the trajectory.
And so when did, because my feeling is like, I see public art as holding an even greater place in our society, since it is accessible to all, and I so appreciate museums, and I understand the acquisition fees and the maintenance fees and the salaries and all of that, but it's not as completely accessible to everybody. And that's where I love your pieces, because there they are. I mean, you can walk on them, you can touch them, you can spend time with them. And so what in that beginning part then, and what a great childhood, I have to say, because now I understand all the sea themes and, it sounds like with that water, you also get such a great view of the cosmos, and so all of that plays into your work. So when did going to school then translate to wanting to do these big public statements? And what was that first step? What was that first intro?
I'm going to actually answer that in reverse order, because you talked about the cosmos, and that's a very good question. What's interesting about growing up on the beach is that you're always just going back and forth along on a line, and if you're going out sailing or swimming, you're only basically just putting your foot in your toe in the water, right? As far as how far out you're going. So actually, I started off doing a lot of reliefs, and I actually think that was part of the reason why was so there was a relationship with the beach. The cosmos didn't really enter into it until I went west for the first time after I graduated from college. And a friend of mine and I, Jim Beaudry, drove to, believe it or not, Henderson, Nevada in the summertime. And we went into southern New Mexico. And it was the first time I ever realized that we were on a planet, because there were no trees and there was, exposed rock all over the place. You sort of see the curvature of the earth. So it was in the desert that I actually really first found the cosmos. And if I can segue there, what got me going to the desert originally, I was doing a big stained glass and bronze commission in my apartment on, what was it? One of the big streets in Boston, not Newbury Street, but Beacon Street. And I had my TV set up with the aluminum foil, on the antenna. And I was making stained glass and bronze in this fancy apartment. And a commercial came on of a red pickup truck going through a stream bed. And the stream had no green on either side of the water. And it was the first time in my life I had ever seen that, where a stream didn't have green vegetation on either side of it. And it was like somebody hit me on the head and said, you have to go to the desert. And so that's actually, it was that commercial on TV on Beacon Street in Boston in, 1976 or 77, that brought me to the desert. So I segued. So let's go back to your question, if you could ask it again.
No, actually, you're answering it beautifully. I'm just wondering, so you talked about that first commission. So how did all that happen for you? I mean, it's so interesting so once we go to school and we learn what we learn and meet who we meet, but then how do you transition to public art, wanting to take your sculpture in that direction? I guess that's the basic question. Well,
it was a long path. I think that the short answer is that public art really didn't become a thing in America until about when I was graduating from grad school, which was about 1985. And so not only was I sort of on the cutting edge of glass, my work's always been about glass, but I was also kind of on the cutting edge of public art too. So that first commission was actually through some clients. I used to sell furniture and do store design at Design Research in Harvard Square. And I had an exhibition of my work that I'd done in college in Design Research. And these people saw that work and then commissioned me to do something for their house in New Hampshire. So that's where that commission came from. It was still a private commission. What I don't like about private commissions in general, and it certainly started with jewelry, is that in jewelry there was a lot of ego involved, money and ego, two things which I'm really not interested in at all. In jewelry, it's, well, does it make me look rich? Does it highlight the color of my eyes? Does it look good with my outfit? And I wasn't interested in any of that. And it was the same problem with a private client in their house too. It's that they spent a great deal of money on it. I don't know how they earned their money. And then they sort of hold it, right? They protect it from the rest of the world. So again, with the 4th of July in Beverly Farms, I liked the idea of having it be much more out there. One of the first successful public art projects I did was I was breaking up with my husband, and I was living in a little tiny apartment in Imperial Beach, California. And there was a shower wall at the beach that was made out of cinder block. It was about 6 by 8 feet, very poorly made. And anybody who took a shower at it, it was kind of an insult to take a shower at it because the world was seeing how desperate you were to take a shower. So I thought, well, can't we make that look better? So I worked with the Boys and Girls Club in Imperial Beach. We made all the tiles by hand, and we clad both sides of the wall with mosaic. One side was a wave, and the other was a sort of a whirlpool shape. I worked on it for 6 months out there, gluing every tile on the wall in the wind and the rain. And I eventually got $1,000 grant from the Port of San Diego for it. So I got $1,000 for 6 times 8 times 2, so 100 square feet of handmade mosaic. But it was healthy for me because I was not necessarily in a great state. And everybody in the community came and sat and talked to me. I mean, people brought me burritos and they brought me, conversation, and they brought me shells and tiles and things. So that was really the first one that was really sort of a success and, sort of pointed the way for me. And at that time, too, there were just beginning to be public art commissions. And I won a huge one almost right off the bat, right at the same time with my husband and a friend of ours, Isela Chacon. We won a project that was called City Gates that was put together by Helen and Newton Harrison, who are two of my mentors. Helen has now passed away, but Newton is still going great guns. That was to do major entrances to the city of San Diego on the freeway overpasses. And so there was one at the north and the south and the east and the west. And we won the one at the south, which was at Chicano Park, which is now a national historic treasure, basically. And my husband and Isela were both Hispanic, and we won this huge commission. And then the city of San Diego took away the money to build it, and then we won an NEA for it. So the city felt so guilty that they let us do one of the arches over the freeway, which was about greetings. There were porcelain enamel panels of greeting. And the city took our money away to redeck the Star of India, which is a historic ship, kind of like the Constitution in Boston. So they didn't think anybody would notice that they took our $100,000 away. And, but of course, here I am talking about it still. So that was a big one that I won right off the bat. And then the next big one that I won, and where there's still no mosaics here, was Time and Presence, which is on the Long Beach Blue Line out of downtown Los Angeles. And it's now where the convention center is and the Staples Center. So it's become a very important stop. And I was one of 3 or 4 finalists, and somebody else won. A very well-known woman won the commission, but she designed a metronome in the middle of the tracks. And the engineers for the train were like, there is no way we're putting a moving object in front of light rail transit. So they came back to me, and that's how I won it. And that's the one that has the solar system, and then Pangea, and then life on Earth before man in the form of a turtle and an orchid. And that was right at the time of the Rodney King race riots. And so I wanted to really sort of emphasize that we're all one, and the idea that Pangea, at one point, all these continents were together and all these people were together. And so there is pure steel overhead, and it casts shadows onto the platform below. So you can stand with 1 foot in Africa, for instance, and 1 foot in Denmark or United States. And that's still there and still looking great. And that was so those two were really the ones that got me going.
And so what part, because all of this, I mean, when you're the head artist and I'm assuming you're determining the materials as well. And like you said, that one was that's been up for decades now and still in great condition. So did you also in your education learn about all the materials, or was this as you go, you learn about what you need to have longevity for your project?
You're really good at this because you're asking great questions. So yes, absolutely. I like materials. I've always liked materials. So that's one of the things I sort of pride myself on. And when you're doing public art, it's very different than doing something for yourself in your studio, because you have to understand that not only is your audience the community, but it's the engineers and the bean counters and the insurance agents and all that kind of thing. So you have to think of all of that. And I like that challenge.
Safety is so important.
Again, because I changed my right. And so again, Roger Mack, really, in sculpture at Syracuse, was the one that sort of gave me the courage to kind of do anything that I wanted to. And Syracuse University was very good. My major was in something called experimental studios. So I worked in things like video with Bill Viola. I did jewelry, printmaking, ceramics. So I learned how to make all sorts of different things. And that's one of my skills anyway. Not that I'm a master craftsman. I'm kind of a sloppy craftsman, but I understand how everything works. And then I bring in the very best to actually do the welding now, or, set the mosaics. So that's certainly one of my fortes, is to be able to talk the talk and walk the walk.
When you work with, can't physically do all the things, how do you bring the craftspeople in to work with you to make one of your designs into a reality?
Well, that's always the most fun kind of conversation. So it's like, I don't even know where to start. I'll give you the most recent example. I got it through Facebook, which I love. So much has come to me through Facebook, I think, including this interview. Somebody was saying that they were looking for somebody to do mosaics. And so somebody mentioned my name. And then I found out it was 3D mosaics. And I wrote back and said, I'm not interested. I don't do 3D mosaics. And then I found out what they were looking for. And I said, well, I think I know exactly the person to do it. And his name is Lech Jaretko. And he's the person who built all the mosaics for Nikki de St. Paul. And he lives not far from us here in San Diego. And I'd never met him, but I knew that he was still here and he had a world-class craftsmanship ability. So I called him up and he said, nope, not interested. Here's my second in command. I looked at that person's work. I said, nope, not good enough. We need you, Lech. You're the master. And so to make a long story short, we're now working with Idlewild Union out of Seattle. And I think we're probably still in an NDA as far as who exactly the artist is, but it's an artist who's very well known as a painter who wants to go into the glass and mosaic world. And so now I'm working with these incredibly talented people in the glass blowing world, in the painting world, and in the 3D mosaic world. And I'm sort of like the go-between of understanding each one of the crafts and bringing everybody together to make these big 3D. So I think that the short answer is just sort of being aware, paying attention to really high quality work, and then wanting to be there.
So like in theater, you'd be like the stage manager or director, pulling all the different diverse people together to create the art. You're listening to Art on the Air, WVLP 103.1 FM, and on Lakeshore Public Radio 89.1 FM. Do you have a
Absolutely.
Do you have a favorite project of yours? One of them you I know it's kind of like asking you which of your children you like better, but one of your projects you say, I really like that one piece.
Well, of course, the tried answer to that everybody does is, my next one.
Right.
But that's actually not true for me. I think that probably the best thing we've ever done is the one that just went in, which is the Grand Canyons of La Jolla. And I think I probably sent you some pictures of that. It's the technique that I invented, LithoMosaics, working with an unbelievably talented group of concrete contractors at Shaw & Sons. And we had this incredible opportunity to work with Walter Munk, who's the father of modern oceanography. He died 2 years ago at the age of 101, but he was collaborating with us on the whole process. And it's the largest LithoMosaic to date. It's 2,400 square feet, which is gigantic. And it's the deep sea canyons off of the beach at La Jolla that is based on a paper that Walter did in 1947 of that exact beach, of the waves coming in and hitting the shore and then bouncing back out. And we put 100 life-size creatures in it, everything from a juvenile whale to a human. And, you know, it's a real tour de force. It's going to be hard to top that one. So,
no, I was just going to say, I love that you shared that whole process, you know, because it really made the community feel part of it, especially during this time. And I actually have a question about that piece in particular. I mean, it could be about any of the pieces, but it was looking at that piece that inspired this question. And so there are multiple colorways within colors. And so do you plot everything out? Like I'm still very analog with all of my designs. I haven't entered into it would probably make my life so much easier to go digital. But when you do those colorways, is everything planned out or is it intuitive as you're doing it? Let's say if you're doing it personally or you have someone else who is doing it, are they all plotted out? That the black one and then the gray one and then this one, or is there is there an intuitive process that goes along with it?
I'm just like you. I'm all analog. So again, one of the reasons why this is the project that we're talking about is because there was so much kismet involved in it. There was so much, I don't know where it came from kind of thing. So when we first got the project, Mary Monk, Walter's wife, told us that we should do 12 depths of the canyons because that's how the bathyscape worked. And the tile that we used from Dow Tile has, I think, like 10 or 9 blues. And then we could mix those with the Smalty that we get from smalty.com. And actually the color aspect, so the background of it came in at the end. So I'll kind of go the other way around. The first thing to do was to actually draw out the shape full scale. And 2,400 square feet is pretty darn big. And the reality is that we didn't have a studio that was big enough for that. So Mary and Walter, I used to call it Monk World, M-U-N-K World, because they know everybody and everything. Walter was friends with the Dalai Lama and the Pope and, you name it, they would come over for dinner. So through them, Cami Ingram at Scripps Institute of Oceanography, I didn't pronounce that well, Scripps Institute of Oceanography, donated this building called Building D to us on the cliff over the ocean, the best view in Southern California. And so we laid out the whole thing in this massive building with the $1 billion view. And all the fish were made in advance in our studio here. And then they were brought there and laid out on this plan. Except for the whale was made in the studio. And the reprographic drawing had all the canyon lines on it. And that summer I went to Haystack Craft School and I met Mariah Armstrong Connors, who was the only other person from California at Haystack in that session. And I observed how helpful she was to everybody, in the glass blowing demonstrations and things. She was always, the first up to help or be in the right place at the right time. So when we came back to California, I asked her if she wanted to work for me. And so she came over for an interview and she thought she was going to be one of, 100 people interviewing, but it was only her. And I said, what we really need help with is all these blues, this background. We've got thousands of square feet of blues to set, and we need to come up with a palette of the mix of all these different colors. So that was really what Mariah ended up being in charge of. Had an incredibly good eye for the blues, and we'd look out the window and, see what the color was, and then, look back at what we were doing. So there was this wonderful sort of back and forth. But no, we were doing all of that completely on the fly. You couldn't photograph it, right? You couldn't get above it to see what it looked like. And we had to do it in parts because even the building, which was gigantic, wasn't big enough. So it was just pure luck. I mean, and then the two other people who were working with me, Wick Alexander, who did a lot of the sharks and the really fast fish. He's kind of a genius painter. And then Kelsey Hartley did a lot of the birds. So, and I did the slow fish, the things like the sunfish and the skates and the jellyfish were kind of what I did. So you can see this hand basically of the different people in it. But how it came together with those four people in that building and that time with Walter Monk, it was just unbelievable.
Well, that makes me much happier than if it was all plotted out and antiseptic. Like, I love hearing that that's the way that came about.
Robin, you become an advocate for art, public art. And I was reading in your bio about public art as a verb and the 10 commandments of public art and the contributions there. Tell us a little bit about that advocacy.
Well, that's public art as a verb is on the public address website. It's a group that I'm a part of. We've been meeting for over 20 years. We think we're probably one of the first public art advocacy groups in the country. It's all hard-won knowledge is the short answer. We came together actually because the person who was in charge of public art in San Diego abruptly left. And there were a lot of us that were left completely hanging of what to do with our projects and how to move them forward. So what was interesting about it is that normally public artists are not allies because we're competitors. So what was really wonderful about it, and this happened, just naturally by itself, is we became friends and supportive of each other instead of, stabbing each other in the back because, the other person won the big project you wanted. So the 10 Commandments of art is something that I pretty much wrote on my own. And it says things like that you have to stick to a budget. We don't care what the budget is, but just stick to it. Don't be taking money away from the budget. The communication is the number one thing. Okay, and another thing that happens is that when you win a public art project, that's the top of the roller coaster ride. So imagine you're at, the park and you're on a roller coaster and it cranks all the way up to the top. And the moment you win, that's the number one, that's the best place of the whole project. And after that, it's the whole rest of the roller coaster ride. Because at that moment, everybody loves you and they think they know exactly what you're going to do. And they think it looks exactly like what they want you to do. And as the rest of the ride goes on, there's problems with the budget, there's problems with the neighbor, there's problems with materials. And the worst thing is that the jury goes away. So the group of people who chose you and thought you were the one to do it the best disappear and you never see them again. And those people should be advocates for a project all the way through. And so it's sort of like being a board member, right, of a nonprofit. They should sign on for the entire life of the project and help to mediate between the community or the team and the artist and what people actually think. So there's another good paper on the public address website, and that's Public Art as a Verb, and that kind of falls into the same advocacy of it's not it's not a product. It's something that's out there that requires maintenance and mayoral support and city council support and activities being scheduled in a project for it to really work well.
It's true. There needs to be maintenance in perpetuity if they're going to be putting in these permanent public features. So you alluded to the fact that not all of the projects that got funded, some of the funding was taken away. Is there any way that to advocate to complete these projects, or is that kind of over with and you want to move on to the next thing? And what is the next great idea or next project?
Well, all your questions are great. I never give up on a project. So if you go to my brand new website, you'll see dream projects that either we won and then were never built, or they were only built partially. And some of them are 30 years old that I would actually like to see finished. A good example is Bird Park in San Diego. which is a children's park in the shape of a bird in Balboa Park, which is one of the most visited parks in the country. And the landscape architect, I don't know how to say it, persuaded the city council to not build all the public art. So it's kind of like we baked the cake, and the cake is there, but there's no frosting on it, no candles, and no sugar roses and all that kind of thing. And it wouldn't be hard to finish it, and it would put it, it'd make it be a world-class park. But right now it's just a park called Bird Park that doesn't really have, it has the whole site is drawn in the shape of a perchiform bird, and the names of perchiform birds are there. But the eye gazebo and the wing garden and the gizzard tot lot and all those kinds of things aren't finished. So yes, I never give up on a project, and I hold out for them because it's like birthing a child. I think I've never birthed a child, but it takes an awful lot of energy to dream up, to be lucky enough to get the idea for some big project. And then not to have it go in is just, it's heartbreaking.
Well, sometimes things blossom at their own pace, and this might be the perfect moment to tie up some of those, because that's where I am personally in my career as well. I'm revisiting things from this, like the 70s and bringing them to their full realization finally. So I think there's always hope of that, especially with you of the same mind to make that happen. I think right now globally we have the support to do these projects now in a bigger way than ever before.
Robin, how has COVID influenced you? First of all, since so much of your art is public and has to be done probably collaboratively, and also personally, what are you looking forward to after this is over, how you've dealt with it over these past 10 months? Well,
what's really interesting about COVID for us is that it's been like a sabbatical or grad school. It's the first time in my life that the government has ever done anything for me. I've never had a paid sick day. I've never had unemployment insurance. I've never had a paid vacation. I've never had anybody paying for my insurance. But I happen to be exactly the right age right now in that I'm over 65. So I have Medicare and Social Security, which are coming in. I was lucky enough to get a grant from the county, which is paying for the website and the new postcards. I got a PPP grant, which paid my tax bill. And there's a mortgage furlough. So for us, it's we've never been so well taken care of in a way. And then I'm also lucky enough to live out in the country in a really nice place with a really good studio, so that I'm not having to go into town. So in a way, it's been this huge opportunity to be making new work. So I've done an awful lot of jewelry in the last couple of years. It's something I started after about 35 years. I hadn't done it since college, and then I started doing it again. I've just gotten a new sort of artist residency at a California State Parks, where I've got an old fruit packing barn, and I'm going to do some installations, I think, in there that are just for me and photography.
You're listening to Art on the Air, WVLP 103.1 FM, and on Lakeshore Public Radio 89.1 FM.
But as far as us personally, the socialist aspect of COVID has been fantastic. And I think that, bringing up what Esther was talking about, I would think that it's going to be into the future and into perpetuity. I think that there are a lot of, I have a project, for instance, that I've been trying to get funded in Corning, New York. Well, Corning just got a $200 million grant to build the vials for the vaccine. So that means that there's going to be money and energy in Corning that wasn't there before. She's right also about the whole idea of museums that, charge entrance fees and are interior and every surface has to be wiped down, and the air conditioning units have to be, the filters have to be changed. And so I'm very interested in the exterior of museums and making things that are in the public art realm. Part of the problem with public art, too, is that what happens is the mayor of your town runs out of all their options for some weird, depressed, abysmal piece of property. And so once they can't figure out what to do with it all, then they say, oh, public artists, come and put something fabulous here. But I'm going to tell you exactly what it has to be about. It has to be about, the veterans and the Korean War, which is fine. I don't have any problem with veterans in the Korean War. And I don't even have any problem with your, abysmal piece of land. I can do something great with it. But it's not the way to get the ultimate creativity. And a situation like that also might have 500 people apply for that project with one winner. So you've got 499 losers and one winner. And there's got to be a better way of going about this. So what I've been working on is this series called Cold Call, Museum as Muse, where I actually go to museums in the Rust Belt and look at these small museums in small cities and say, how can I do things on the exterior of the museum which are exciting for the city, which are not inside the museum, where I'm collaborating with not only the museum, but the mayors, the city council, and the people in the community. And could those mayors all sort of team up together? I mean, if the mayor of Toledo and Tacoma and Corning and Syracuse all, form some sort of alliance, where they could go would be, incredible. So I would agree that I think that horrific as COVID is and real as it is, which most people I don't think really realize, or a lot of people don't really realize, I think that it's going to be kind of a renaissance for art in the public sphere.
I agree. And I also think it's completely essential to have, I've always felt that public art is essential. Like back in the 70s and 80s, even, I think I could go to the museum and for a donation, just spend the 15 minutes I had between appointments to, view whatever I could in that amount of time. And now with museums it's hard to take a family to a museum now, but to go to, let's say, Millennium Park and really enjoy not only the plantings and the outside, but actually really important pieces of art. It's going to be crucial because that's how our children and our children's children are going to be inspired. I just can't imagine not having those visuals accessible and not just in a building.
Do you have a favorite piece of public art that's not your own, something that may be outside of mosaics?
Well, the two people who I've worked with a lot and are very impressed with, I mentioned before, well, three people, two groups, are Helen and Newton Harrison, who think at a massive scale, and they're environmental artists. So they think of things like the Green Heart of Holland, where they redesign the agriculture and urban planning of the country of Holland to account for water moving in the rivers, or Peninsular Europe, where they're looking at all of Europe actually as one peninsula. So their work can be kind of dry aesthetically, but conceptually, I think there's nobody better. And then I'm also always impressed by Christo.
Oh, yeah.
He's somebody who I can always learn from. I actually worked on the Umbrellas project, and he did everything about that was just done so right. And his ability to visualize in advance and make the drawings, and then make the project come through, and then the photographs afterwards look just like the drawings he did in advance. So those two are certainly ones, but I'm doing something which I always object to, which is they're not actually really public artists, neither one of those, because they're outside of the public art realm, which is a sort of a different subcategory of how, right, and they're famous artists. I really like Vicky Scurry's work. I would say that Vicky Scurry is somebody who I really look up to, that she wins the big public art commissions. She invented a process of doing cast concrete. She's a very nice person. And I think she does really unique pieces. There's also a good one that just went up in New York. I've forgotten the name of the artist. It's called Doors for Doris, and that's a beauty that just went into. So, there's plenty of it out there. We just need more.
You said when you approach like a mayor or something like that, are there commissions that you maybe just turn down because they kind of crowd in the concept of it so much that there's just, you don't feel there's enough artistic freedom in it?
I never turn down a commission.
Okay.
I have tried in the past. As a matter of fact, the map, the Grand Canyons of La Jolla, we were so busy at one time, we'd won this big project in Albuquerque, New Mexico, of doing 20 bus stops over 20 miles. And that was such a thrill that we turned down doing the Grand Canyons of La Jolla. And then the mayor of Albuquerque, after we'd won it and won top accolades from everybody on the board, the mayor said, "Oh, well, I don't like it because it doesn't have singing coyotes and 55 Chevys." And so he basically canned the entire project. And we had turned down the Grand Canyons of La Jolla. But the irony is, and given it to somebody else, but the client then decided that the people she'd given it to weren't capable of pulling it off. And probably not very nicely, she unhired them and hired us. And we got to do this project. But the short answer is that our life is so insecure that we really can't afford to not take everything that comes our way. But I will say that, the piece of the terrible piece of property with the war memorial on it we were mentioning, I don't apply for those. And most public art projects now go through a process called CAFE, call for entries online. Right. And it's terrible. I've never won a project on CAFE, and I don't know anybody who has or likes it. It's trying to make artists be a square peg in a square hole, and it never works. So now I only do projects to which I'm invited to apply.
And so do you have any opportunities when you're not working on something? What do you do personally other than the jewelry? Do you have another discipline that you relax by, whether it's reading or, who knows, knitting? I don't know.
Well, we hike every day. We have a couple of great dogs and we hike every day. We live out in the country, so the hiking is great. I really like photographing when I'm doing that. If you follow my Facebook feed, you'll see way too many photographs of my hikes. I read a lot. I have a fantastic book collection. And I work. I love to travel. The last couple of years, I've gone to Haystack and Pilchuck a couple of times. I have great friends who live in Holland who are jazz musicians. But really, the most interesting thing I can be doing is working. So I try to work all the time.
Well, we're about near the end. I want to give you a chance, Robin, to tell us how people can get in touch with you, websites, Facebook addresses, other types of social media and such like that.
Well, isn't that nice? So we have a brand new website that's just barely launched, and it's my name at myname.com, so robinbrailsford.com. And that's built by my great friend, Paula Jacoby Garrett. We also have some new postcards that are going to be coming out. So if people want to send me an address, I can send them some of the postcards. And then on Facebook, I have way too many pages. I have my name. I have LithoMosaics, Pioneer Modernism, Rab Jewelry, Brailsford Marine Surveying, Territory of Magic. They go on and on. But if you, just like me personally, then, you'll get invited to all the other ones.
Well, we really appreciate you coming on Art in the Air. That's mosaic artist Robin Brailsford, who likes to think big with her public art installations all over the place. We really appreciate you coming on Art in the Air and just explaining your entire story to our audience.
Yeah, it's been a complete pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Here's a longtime friend to Art in the Air and composer of our theme music, Billy Foster and his trio. You've been listening to Art in the Air and would like to thank our guests this week. Art in the Air is heard every Friday at 11 a.m. and rebroadcast Monday at 5 p.m. on WVLP and Sunday at 7 p.m. on Lakeshore Public Radio 89.1 FM. Thanks again to Greg Kovach, WVLP Station Manager, and Tom Maloney, Vice President of Radio Operations for Lakeshore Public Radio. Underwriters for Art in the Air are Valparaiso University's Brower Museum, our landlord, Walt Breidinger of Paragon Investments, and Marilyn Van, Arts Patron. Art in the Air is supported by an Indiana Arts Commission Arts Project Grant and the National Endowment for the Arts. If you're interested in being a guest or sending us information about your arts-related event or exhibit, please email us at aota@brech.com. That's aota@brech.com, or contact us through our Facebook page. Your hosts were Larry Brechner and Esther Golden, and we invite you back next week for another episode of Art on the Air.
Aloha, everyone. Have a splendid week.
Express yourself through art and show the world your heart. Express yourself through art and show the world your heart. You're in the know with Esther and Larry. Art on the air today. Stay in the know with Larry and Esther. Art on the air our way. Express yourself through art and show the world your heart. Express yourself through art and show the world your heart.